Now your memories start today and you move forwards, and like stuff like that. Like you sometimes hang around in the past too much and think about reminisce in the past about what happened when 10 years ago. It's like, get rid of that, move on. So that's sort of a thing. And there was loads of personal stuff as well that came up as well, but interestingly nothing about my son.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is going to be one of my favourite episodes of all time. As you know, I've transitioned to the podcast to be in person. And there's just a different energy when you get in the room with someone. And also for me personally, I'm just really enjoying spending some time with some special people and really getting a chance to go deeper into their story and just have those conversations. So hopefully it feels to you listening to the podcast like it's just two people having a really deep and meaningful conversation. And I think that is the beauty of podcasting. That's been lost a little bit over time, and it's become a little bit commercialized and marketing focused, whereas actually the origins of podcasting, which we all fell in love with, was just two people having a really deep and meaningful conversation about a topic. Obviously our topic that brings us into the room is alcohol free, but you'll notice the conversations are less and less about that and more about the spin-off insights and reflections and lives and challenges and changes that people face because of that wonderful change that they've introduced into their life. And I have to say, this conversation with Matt Pink, who's a brilliant friend of mine, is one of my all-time favourites. It was an emotional conversation. We went completely deep. We barely spoke about alcohol as such and really tapped into that spiritual side of both of our natures. And these are the conversations that I think alcohol-free people have, that when you're drinking you never get to, because there's always that veneer, that mask. And it's just lovely to spend some time with Matt and have that conversation with him today. And before we get into the episode, just a reminder, these episodes are always brought to you by mycoachbusiness.school. If you're an aspiring coach, if you're inspired by the words of the podcast and you want to go on your journey to give back and contribute and add more meaning and purpose to your life, then come and join me. Come and train with me. It's what I do best on my 6-month diploma in positive psychology and coaching psychology. So you can go and coach in any genre, from life coaching to executive coaching. And anyone that takes that course, they also get an inbuilt specialism of alcohol-free performance coaching. So it's a win, double, treble. And if you're all listening to this and you're already a qualified accredited coach, wonderful. Go to the coachbusiness.school, because there are specialisms you can take. You can come and train with me specifically to become an alcohol-free performance coach, a positive psychology performance coach, or what most people are gravitating towards, to take my full MBA, marketing and business for accredited coaches course, the game changer, where coaching meets business so you can be successful and do what it is that you love and generate the income you need to do what it is that you love and reach more people. All right, that's enough from me. Let's get into today's conversation. Let's do this. Matt, welcome to the first ever in-person podcast in the Shomra.
And then what?
Shomra. It's Irish for room.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so Tara christened this the Shomra.
Nice, very nice. Thanks for having me.
Exactly. So this is a little venture. We just set the whole thing up. It's taken us a little while, but we got there actually.
Yeah.
We got the tech to work-ish.
Mate, I was trying to think what I could learn out of that, and it was perseverance. It looks great, but there's definitely about half an hour of watching you click stuff, and I was like quite impressed with how you made it work.
Yeah, we actually got it to go, even the 2 microphones and then the 2 shots, we've got it all to work. So thank you for joining me. This is the first ever guest in the Shomra. Obviously, you've been a massive part of my life for the last, how many years?
5, probably.
Is it 5 years?
Probably, mate, yeah. Well, I stopped drinking 5 years ago, so 5.5 years ago. And that was because of you. So you didn't know me till probably about 5 years ago.
Yeah, a bit later through that journey.
Yeah.
And what an adventure it's been.
Mate, it's been up and down, but mainly up.
Yeah. So even just take us back to that origin story. We're not going to spend too long in there because I really want to get into sort of the wins and really how you've changed your life effectively. Yeah. But bring us back to that origin story that brought you to this adventure.
It's funny, isn't it? Because when you do these podcasts years ago, you're sort of bored of telling your own story. But I feel like I haven't done a podcast or told my story for ages. So I'm not actually got proper dig that out. So I was working in London in the West End. You were working in London in the city, and I basically saw you on Rich Roll podcast on the way home from work, and I was feeling like awful. I'd been drinking loads and been out partying loads and getting on it loads, and your video just appeared on my phone, and it was like one of them ones where I was like, what's he talking about? Oh, he's talking about people giving up drinking. I was like, that's weird. People don't give up drinking unless they're alcoholics. And then you were saying you're not an alcoholic. And then you were saying you're in London and you were surrounded by people that were drinking and you were in that boozy environment and it was the culture. And I was like, hang on, he sounds like he's literally talking about my life. And then it just like something, just the penny drops. I was like, that sounds like a good idea. I might do it. So I started taking breaks, did a week off, 2 weeks off. And then I was like, no, I'm not sure about this. I feel great, but don't want to give that up. So then I'll go back and do 2 weeks off, 3 weeks on, just drinking party. Then I was like, actually, that feels awful. Let's try and do a month off. And sort of went yin yang for ages until I got to a stage where I was like, hang on a minute, I'm doing a month off the booze. I feel incredible. I'm doing a month on the booze. I feel awful. It's a bit of a no-brainer, but how am I going to do it? I'm locked in this environment. I'm locked in with these people. I'm locked in with this character that I've developed. So when lockdown came around, which was in April 2020, I was like, this is my perfect opportunity. I'm off work. I'm furloughed. All the bars are shut. I'm not with the people I usually drink with. This is my time. So knocked it on the head. I had about a month before of lockdown where I properly got on it.
Tell me the story about the guy that randomly came up to you.
Okay, that was that's going back a bit. So basically, I when I lost my son, the tragedy of all of that, I went on this downward spiral of kind of drinking, drugs, and just completely downward spiral for a couple of years. I just felt like suicidal. You end up losing everything, losing my marriage and all that sort of stuff. And I literally had a bag of clothes with me. I didn't know where I was staying one day to the next. The only thing I had left was my job, and I was hanging on to that by a thread. And previously, a couple of years before, I'd gone to see a spiritualist, a medium, and they told me that all about my son. And they told me the story about how he was a reoccurring spirit, and they were telling me that he's fine and he's been here before and he'll be here again, and it's, don't worry about him. And it kind of put my mind at ease for the first time since I lost him. And it also opened my eyes to the world of spirituality. I was like, I used to think this was like a load of nonsense, and they were just going to tell you that your great grandma's there and whatever. But actually, going in there blind, they didn't know who I was. I didn't know who they were, and they told me that I've lost my son. They're showing me him, and he's being looked after. I was like, wow, this whole world of spirituality exists. It helped me short term, and then I went a couple of years later, and I was still downward spiral continued. And then I was on my arse, basically, on my last sort of pound note with a bag of clothes, lost everything, didn't care about anything, feeling super suicidal, and just standing outside the pub. I'd been there for 2 days, kicked me out last. I was first one in there the next day. I'd been drinking in between, and this guy just came up to me and he was like, I need to speak to you. I need to speak to you. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And he was like, I need to speak to you. And he kept repeating himself. And when I'd been at my medium appointment a couple of years before, at the end of the appointment, I was crying my eyes out and I just couldn't believe it. And I said to her, can I come back to see you? Because I want to come back for this it's the first time I've sort of sensed like relief since it happened. And she held my hand and she was like, no, don't worry, darling. If we ever need you, we'll come to you. And I thought, I left that appointment thinking, I wonder what that means, but didn't think anything of it. Anyway, fast forward for 2 years, on my ass outside this pub, guy comes over to me and he was like, I need to speak to you. And he's held my hand and he put a bit of paper in my hand and he was holding it shut. And he was like talking to me the whole time, going, you've got 2 sisters, no brother, 2 sisters, no brothers, 2 sisters, no brothers. And he was repeating himself constantly. And I was like, that's weird because I have got 2 sisters, no brother, but I don't know why he's telling me that. I don't know what he's doing. I still think he might rob me. I didn't know what was going on. And then he was telling me all of these things about my life. And he was saying, there's a girl KK, there's a girl KKK, there's a girl K. And I was like, that's weird because where I've been out of my arse, been kicked out of my house, single, I've been just scrolling through Tinder in the pub and just I'll fire that up, see what happens there. I met this girl for a drink last week called Kirsty, but I was like, even then I thought, that's weird. Then he was telling me I'm close to a flower, close to a flower, close to a flower. And I didn't trigger what he was going on about. And he told me all these things about my life. And he told me that at the end of it, he said, you're a really good guy. You're one of life's good guys. You're here to help the world. Your voice carries. People need to hear your voice. You've got an important message. You need to stop doing these things and start showing and using your voice for good. And you're going to have a long life and you're going to help lots of people be very successful. And I was listening to every word he was saying, clinging on to it. Because I kind of had lost all hope, everything. And I always describe it as like he was putting me back on the track. And I was like firing. It was like someone had fired me back up. I was like, yeah, I'm a good guy. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I've got a kind of my old character started to come back into me. The blood started draining through me again. And I was like firing back up to life. And then when he went, I opened a bit of paper and it said like flower, and he'd drawn like the picture in a biro on a white bit of paper of like a lily, And my daughter's called Lily. And I was like, oh. And it said 2 sisters, no brothers written down. I still don't know what that meant. But it said K, K, K. And he put K equals Kirsty. And he told me to go with her. And so basically everything he told me was right. And the instructions he gave me, I just did. And one of them was go with Kirsty. She's good for you. So I rang her up, moved in with her a week later because I had nowhere to live. And now married to her with our own kid. And we've got a beautiful blended family. Told me to give up drinking. So I did, although it wasn't straight away. It was that kind of sparked the journey. And ever since that, I've kind of told that story. That brought me back to life, literally. And I've now got an enormous amount of gratitude and understanding about spirituality and the whole world we live in, which is much further out and broader than I thought it ever was.
And let's dive into that a little bit. And also just to say, I think you and Kirsty are one of the best couples that I've been around. It is a really lovely thing. You have a really lovely relationship.
Yeah.
And I've seen that up close. And you're a brilliant mum and dad to your extended family now. You just come back from that lovely trip. Like, isn't that... But that's amazing though, isn't it? Like when you told me that story, like how powerful is that for someone to step into your life like that, almost direct you to Kirsty, who really is the love of your life. Do you know what I mean? You are a really brilliant team together and to go on that adventure. So what does that sort of tell you about that spiritual world that you've just touched upon there?
It makes... The way I describe spirituality now is like everything... if you put it this way, if you took spirituality away from me, it instantly would make me have like a panic attack because I feel like the walls are closing in. Because everything I lived in before felt like very boxed in. And then as soon as I discovered spirituality, it was like someone took the roof off and knocked the walls down. And I had like all this space around me. And I was like, wow, this is what matters. And what was in this box before doesn't matter. There's so much more to the world than there ever is. And actually, the books I read now and the obsession I have with what happens next when you die and all this stuff, my understanding of death, I'm almost looking forward to it because it sounds amazing. And I've been on I've done some amazing spiritual journey stuff. I've done like a mushroom retreat recently. All of this stuff's kind of with the aim of trying to understand what's in my soul, what's in my subconscious. I'm almost like reconnecting myself in every way possible to the greater world that exists, which I always thought was super woo-woo, but it's just, I'm scratching the surface with it. But every time I do something with it, it wows me.
Yeah, and Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, has that saying, being able to meet death with a firm step.
Yeah.
Because you've lived your life now in a way that is to its fullest. Therefore, if your day comes knocking tomorrow, you're not scared of it, whereas so many people put their lives off for some future day, and then at some point along that journey, it gets taken away through circumstance or illness or whatever it might be, are the ones that almost go out kicking and screaming, whereas actually to really lean in and live your life now, which you're doing in such an incredible way, it's fantastic. And I'm totally with you on this. And I think that spiritual part of our adventures is so important, and it's such an individual thing, spirituality. I think we get confused a little bit. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic boys' school, and you think that's it. So if I'm going to mass on a Sunday, then I'm doing the spiritual thing, and if I'm not spiritual. It's just not true. It's nothing. It's got absolutely nothing to do with it.
No.
It's this individual journey, isn't it?
That's a story of that you're taught to believe, and I think that's the problem. And in my men's group, I find that we had a really good conversation about God and spirituality and religion and all of these things, and actually turns out a lot of the lads on there were kind of they had religion drummed into them, so it kind of beat the spirituality out of them. And actually in their later life they've come around to the idea that actually I've always thought that was not me because I was forced on it. Actually it was not the right thing for me, but in terms of spirituality now I'm looking at it completely differently. So I think I think, and actually I'm reading a book now called The Journey of Souls. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Have you read it?
No.
It's incredible, and it teaches you, and what it's doing even more so is teaching me, to your point, about live your life now. Because if you don't, and if there's things you die having not tried or done or not learned, they just put you right back to square one. You go back to the start, and it's really fascinating. So it's like, what we'll do next, because you ducked that and you never tried it, and you sat in an office for 50 years in the same place, you never tried this. Then your next life, we're going to put you down and you're going to try and you're going to have to learn that. And it's got a really interesting take on all that. So now it is about all the boxes I can tick, all the things I can try, all the things I can achieve to fulfill my life, so that when I get there, they're not sending me back to square one to start and learn it all again.
Yeah, and I find all of this fascinating because it'd be so easy to sort of look in and listen into this conversation, or if we had listened to this conversation maybe 5-10 years ago, we'd have gone, what's that about?
Yeah.
But whereas now, when you've got the courage to do something a bit different, and I think it does come from having that clarity of mind from not drinking alcohol, definitely paves the way for it.
Oh, mate, 100%. Like, there's no way spirituality can exist in my eyes if you drink. Because I always describe it as having like a tin hat on, and I always think connection comes through the ground, up through your feet, and out your head and into the sky. And if you're drinking or you're hungover or you're mildly hungover, it cuts you off straight away. And that thing I spoke about, the ceiling opening and the walls closed, you're back in that box. If you drink, you're back in the box. If you don't drink, the ceiling. It's as simple as that. And that was what was for me. And I knew that because when I'd had periods off it, I was like, hang on a minute, what's going on in here? And then it closed me straight back in. And I was like, hang on a minute, back out. And that was a big part of why I continued the journey, because why would I want to go back in that confined box just for the sake of 20 minutes of feeling good?
Yeah, and it reminds me of Scott Peck, was on the wall there, wrote the road least travelled by, or the road less travelled.
Yeah.
And he quotes that famous Robert Frost poem about there was two paths diverged in the wood and I took the one less travelled by, and that made all the difference.
Yeah.
But the big message in Scott Peck's book is that we've become spiritually lazy.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons many people are spiritually a bit lazy is because of alcohol.
Yeah.
Because they haven't got the time. They haven't got the headspace. They haven't got the clarity to really go deep and think about these things, because that alcohol lid, that tin hat or whatever it is you described, has actually prevented them from doing so. And I think that's why, like the AA, for example, and again, I'm not an AA person, but I have massive love and respect for everyone that's in the space. And obviously they're really helping people that are in a different space to where I was in terms of my relationship with alcohol. But I think what they do brilliantly, they're not afraid to go straight in to the spiritual side of things. Yeah. Now, for some people, that repels them because they're like, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But they're really courageous with it, whereas science can't go there. Can we read all your science books? They're all scared of it. And I think organised religion has made a lot of people think they're not spiritual because they're not doing the organised religion thing. So I think one of the greatest gifts of going alcohol-free, and I see this all the time, it is a thing, isn't it? You see people take a break from alcohol, and then that spiritual thing, or those big questions in life, have got time to surface.
Yeah.
And that might be like, what is this short and precious life about? Am I in the right job, the right relationship? I get one shot. They start reading different books, listening to different podcasts, and then there's space for that spiritualness to shine through. We see it all the time.
And it needs space as well, because it's no good not drinking Monday to Friday and think you could be spiritual, because by the time you get to Friday, you're sort of back in the game, and then you're closing the lid again, and you go through those periods of time. People are like, I drink at the weekends. Well, that means you're never going to be spiritual, really. And even when you stop drinking, you don't just become spiritual and it happens all overnight. You've got to work at it, you've got to let it happen, you've got to allow the space, you've got to walk into it, you've got to believe in it. And and I really think I'm at 0.001% of the journey so far with spirituality, and I'm excited to see how far I can take with it, because I think it goes back to that whole alignment piece, isn't it? Like, I feel like my optimal spiritually when I'm aligned with who I really am, and to know who I really am, I have to remove the things that make me someone else, like the substances.
Yeah, and on that note, it reminds me of a great saying: you can be knowledgeable with another person's knowledge, but you can't be spiritual with another person's spirituality.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's this really like individual thing, isn't it? I think that's the key to it's an individual thing. Whatever words and labels you want to stick on it, that's, again, totally individual, whether it's an organised religion or you want to call it God or whatever, your soul. But you have to figure these things out. You have to go on that journey yourself.
Yeah.
You have to do the work on yourself, and you have to like open those doors, and it's not an instant process, like angels overnight, but slowly but surely, I think with that platform of being alcohol free, you've got the head space, because there's so, like, I cannot explain, and you know this, when alcohol's in your life, it just takes up so much of your head. It just does. Is this a one drink moment? I'm hungover, I'm hanging. Actually, we've got that event on tonight. Who's driving the car? Did I pretend to have one drink and really it was free? The cancelled train that wasn't really, like, the little web of white lies and all that, it just engulfs our minds, I think, to such a level. And that's for the average drinker.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realise that. So with that gone, there's definitely a serenity, a calm that sits behind that. And I think that is just enough space to start to ask those questions, to open your mind up to different podcasts, different insights, these type of conversations. Like, I love having these conversations. And here's the truth of it. In the world of drink, no one has these conversations.
No.
It gets really superficial. It's football, it's work, it's just like stuff, especially lads.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, and occasionally you might find yourself like in one of those weird scenarios where everyone's drunk too much and a bit of the spiritual conversation comes up, but you never remember any of it anyway. Whereas I find when you're alcohol-free and I bump into someone new, let's just say we're at an event, like by the end of that event, we've definitely had a conversation that's gone towards something way more meaningful and spiritual than I'd spent the last 20 years trying to get to.
Yeah. And I think the thing with spirituality as well is it is this everlasting thing that even in my short journey, I've gone from having this big broad brush because I was against, like I was like, I don't really want to go down the God route. I'm not really a Christian. I don't really know what I am. So let's just call it the universe. And that's where I used to talk to, the universe. But over the last few years, I've wanted to like narrow. I'm like, I want to narrow this a little bit. And like, I do want to talk about something, but then I revisit. I'm like, is it God? And then my opposition to that is, well, if it's Christianity, I'm essentially saying that the other religions are wrong, and I don't think that's right. I think they're all right. So I think, what is it? So I'm in this battle now, this juxtaposition of like, well, who am I? What am I? And I even thought I was joking with the sesh lad saying, I might start my own one. But I am him.
Yeah. It's one of these cults that we're all involved in.
Why not?
But like the thing is, it's really, and I'm delighted we're having this conversation, it's really brave to have these conversations because I think some of like the God squad, let's just say, have really stigmatized these conversations. It's like, oh my God, he's talking about God, he's talking about spirituality, run a mile.
Yeah.
But we should be talking about it.
Yeah.
It's the most fundamental part of being human. It's the thing that helps us answer all the big questions that social media certainly can't, and a few drinks doesn't. And I think that's why many of us are floundering.
Yeah.
Because we need that spiritual element of our life. And if you wind the clock back not long ago, it was totally baked into who we were as a human. For nearly all of our evolution, we would have had a really strong, powerful belief in something bigger, whether it be, you know, one of the gods from the Greek and Roman days to the sun that we used to worship as pagans. Like it's just inbuilt into being human, isn't it? And I think in the modern world, it feels like it's been overdone and overhyped and stigmatized to such a point that people are now afraid of having those conversations, or afraid of saying, actually, let's get together and create our own little version of what we think we believe. And you're right to say that everyone's right.
Yeah.
Because it's a personal choice, isn't it? Ultimately, if you're going to be a good person and it leads you to be a good person, then that's a wonderful thing.
And it ties into something that we're not very good at as humans, is gratitude. And there's a real close-knit tie to that. And what I mean by that is you can what I find now is I'll go into a situation, whether it's personal, whether there's something you're going into thinking this could be really bad, and then you can find a little bit of space where you're like, yeah, but this is meant to happen. This is, regardless of what I walk into and what the outcome is today, the outcome is the outcome, and I'm grateful for that outcome because it's trying to teach me something, or it's pointing me in a better direction, rather than the opposition to that, which is where we get, oh, why is it always me? It always happens to me, this bad stuff. Like, it be the victim mindset. It's actually even in, and this is the extreme example I've used before, of losing my son, I can find some positives that have come out of that. Me as a person, as a dad of him, I was in the city working, drinking, sniffing, being a bit of a dick basically, and wasting my life. And me as a person, because of what's happened and the journey I've been on, and I think there's the real deep meaning he was given to me, and I'm grateful for the time I had with him rather than the time I lost with him, and the kick it gave me to nudge me into a better lane, to then go and help people rather than trample over people. So even in that moment of the worst thing that can ever happen, I can find a bit of solace and space and love in it, I suppose. Whereas, you know, there's all, and I go back to the smaller examples of that, is when someone old me would have had a coffee spill, I'd have got the right ump and thought, well, fucking that's annoying, it's ruined my suit and ruined my day. Whereas now it's like, even in those moments, you just laugh it off and you brush it off. And that's only because you're grateful for who you are, you're grateful for the life you've given, and you've got a great understanding of what else is out there, because it's much bigger than what we are.
Yeah, I love this. And my personal belief is that we have this soul, or inner diamond, or immortal diamond. Richard Rohr calls it that, my sort of great spiritual guide, which I love that concept. And basically saying the false self, which is like that egoic self that we call us, that has successes and families and whatnot, is hidden, or what's beneath that is this immortal diamond, your soul. And actually, I think if you sit in silence, and it doesn't have to be call it meditation, but just sit in silence and get beneath the commentary that's in your mind, you get into this space that you can feel it.
Yeah.
There's no words in there. There's no emotions in there. There's no commentary in there, but there's something where you're like, I'm connected to the whole. And it was my Molly that came home a few years ago and said to me, just really flippantly off the cuff, the number one law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only repurposed. And she sort of just dropped that comment, walked out, and my mind just blew up. It went, what? And then I realised, I think that, and a lot of the great spiritual guys talk about this, that soul, that inner blueprint, I think is our like connection, our God within, whatever you want to describe it, to the whole.
Yeah.
And I think that is where our real power is. Our immortal power sits within us. And I think eventually when our human body dies, because it does, it's mortal, this soul just reconnects to the whole.
Definitely. That's what all the books say. That's just fact, isn't it? Energy can't be destroyed. So, and that's what led me to the magic mushroom retreat, which is something I've never wanted to do. It's something I've shied away from. There's something I always thought, even up to 6 months ago, I thought it's not me because it's a drug and all. But it's the spiritual journey that led me there, because the point of doing that in a professional setting with professionals doing it is that you pierce your veneer of the subconscious, and it enables you to see what's underneath the bonnet, which is really hard to do even when you are sober and spiritual. You still got to really graft to find a little bit, whereas that opens it out. It pierces a little valve and you start getting all these floods of visions and feelings and thoughts that are your soul. And so that's why I did it, and that was so overwhelmingly enlightening that I still don't know what to make of it. But that again shows you that we're just scratching the surface of it, and I don't know whether I'm going to pursue that further. You can pursue things further with that, or I'm still sitting on what came out, but it's all part of the spiritual journey.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit if you don't mind. So given that experience, I guess, were you fearful going into it that if you take this drug, essentially, which it is, psilocybin, effectively through the mushrooms, that might trigger you back into drinking alcohol? Was that ever a concern?
No, it was more of a I don't want to change my state. And I had done magic mushrooms in Amsterdam recreationally, and I didn't enjoy it. So I was never that sort of guy.
Yeah.
I was a coke boy. That was it. I wasn't into really any other drugs. So when I'd done magic mushrooms in Amsterdam, I had a nightmare. Like I couldn't get rid of it. It was going on for hours. I was a bit paralysed from it. I was seeing some crazy stuff, but I had no understanding of it. So my only nervousness was having that again.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have been further from the truth. It was professionally administered. It was done in an unbelievable setting in Scotland, and it was completely different. So no, there was never any thought about that. It was also a bit of thought about like what I'd done and changed my life, and people are going to judge me for it. And that even when after I'd done it, I haven't really spoken that publicly about it, because I'm a bit like, it's my journey, and I don't want people to think, oh, he's doing drugs or whatever, because people will think stuff like that. And then even after a few months now, I'm like, oh, actually, that's really helped me in my life, and actually I want to talk about it, because there might be some people sitting on the fence that might want to do it. And the more people I speak to, the more people I've seen that have actually done it, that I never knew had done it. So
yeah, I saw Rich Roll, I think, recently.
Did
ayahuasca. I think, I didn't look at the whole, but more or less was coming out to say this is why I was doing it. And obviously Rich was a big recovery guy.
Yeah.
And that was courageous to, I think, come out and talk about that. But tell us about, if you can, you don't have to, some of that experience, what that was actually like, what came out, what were the good things that came out of that for you in terms of enlightenment?
It was mad. Like, it was honestly mad. So we sat in this like purpose-built round room with it's almost like a big teepee with a skylight, and there was 8 of us that were there, and you have it administered, you do breath work into it. It's a beautiful experience. And then you basically put this sleep mask on, and you lie back, and they put you in a bed. You got covers and a pillow. And I just started seeing like bright lights at first. It was very much like, let's move this up a bit. It was very much like I sort of thought it would be. It's exactly, you sort of like, it's like a fruit machine sort of in your head. It's like, what's going on here? And it takes you on this journey. And now initially I was like, I was lying face up, looking at the sky with someone standing above me, slamming a coffin lid down. And that was the first experience when I started to come into this journey. I was like, what? And it was quite scary. And then I could feel myself as the coffin lid shut, it lowered me into the ground and I was getting buried. And then it was at the bottom when I was buried, and I was sort of thinking, and I was going, but you have to lean into it and be able to like know where you are, but also, let it go, like relax. And then it took me on this wild journey and just kept going through cycles of the same thing, but it would show, every time it would show me a different thing. But a lot of it was stuff like I went back to a barbecue I was at when I was a kid, and I could like, and I'd forgotten all about it. It was my mum and dad's friend's house, and there was like, I could smell the sausages that were being cooked on the barbecue, and it wasn't a bad memory or anything like crazy that happened, but it was having a tattoo gun. There was a tattoo removal gun, and it was like tattoo removing the memory, like one line at a time. And it was saying to me, you need to like stop looking backwards. Those memories are gone. Now your memories start today and you move forwards, and like stuff like that. Like you sometimes hang around in the past too much and think about reminisce in the past about what happened when 10 years ago. It's like, get rid of that, move on. So that's sort of a thing. And then there was loads of personal stuff as well that came up as well, but interestingly nothing about my son, which I thought was going to be I was sort of hanging on, that seatbelt on, this could be really rough because I could meet him or I could see him or I could, and nothing at all came out about that. It was more about me and my childhood, I suppose, which was just unbelievable and awful in equal quantities, but you got to take the pain, haven't you, to make progress, I guess.
And then since you had that experience, you sort of come out of that and essentially you just adjust back.
Yeah, I made a massive error of underestimating it, because I flew back to London and I went straight to Wembley that night to meet you all lot in that box. Do you remember?
Yeah.
That was my first. So that was on a Monday, and I'd been up there on the Sunday doing it, or Saturday night into Sunday. So I was straight back into London, straight back to work, straight back into socialising, networking, and like my mind was still like not figured it out. And even a couple of days after, I sort of gave myself a bit of time to figure it out. But even now, which was 6 months ago, I don't think I figured it out, but it's sort of subtly integrating itself. And there's little green shoots that appear like, that's what it means.
Yeah.
And I actually think, going to a deeper level, I think reading this Journey of Souls book, I think it all comes back anyway. I think when you die, I think you get a lot of that, here he is, or there she is, or that's what happened. And then I think you sort of get a lot of that explanation of like all the bad stuff that's happened. They'll be like, did you know that he was actually the one that you should have met, and like all of that stuff, all the ends get tied at the end, if you know what I mean. And I'm starting to feel a bit of that in a miniature version from the retreat. It's like, why was I constantly seeing that person, or what were they trying to tell me? And I've had a few moments where it's been like, I understand that now. So yeah, and that's the work, isn't it? What you don't do is go there, do mushrooms, get told what you need to do in life. And I think that's the downfall of things like spirituality. That's the downfall of my reluctance with people like mediums. Before doing it myself, I was like, I knew people that would go there every 5 minutes. And they were like, you need to do this, you need to do this at work. They go back, they do that work and go back again to the medium and say, like, I'm all right now. Like, what do I do now? It's like, it ain't like that. It's like you go there, get a bit of a hint, work with it, and then you got to do the work yourself. And it's not spoon fed to you. You got to kind of graft for it.
Yeah, that is the key bit. That in many ways, that I think if you're not in the space and you're not doing the work on yourself, and then let's just say you go to one of these retreats and you take the mushrooms and you have these visions, and you're not willing to do the work, I think you miss the point, don't you? Like there is that essence of you've really got to do that reflective work and really let it surface over a period of time, those insights that come together. But I think what is standing out even from this conversation, I think it's so true, that this is an individual beliefs game, isn't it? Ultimately, none of us know the answer to death, for example. What happens next? No one does, right? So we've got to take our best guess. So if you shape that guess in a way that allows you to really enjoy the richness of life now, what an absolute win.
Yeah.
And I think that's what spirituality is in some ways. It's like defining your own version or your own beliefs around the higher power, whatever you describe that, what happens to you when our days come to an end, because no one knows. And then by defining that and creating that, I think it comforts you in the present to get the most out of life and have the most joy from this short and precious life, because you've painted that picture and you understand it and you believe it in your bones and it's your version of what spirituality is. I think that's why it's so important. I think it's one of the most important things people could ever do. But most people, as we said, are just not getting there.
Yeah, because of the booze. And that's interesting. Like, the conversation me and you would have had on this podcast 4 years ago would have been about booze. And the conversation now is we haven't even really mentioned it, because it's like, what next? And in that short time, we can hopefully tell people that you can see how much we've grown by what we're talking about. But if we'd have still sat there, plotted up, beering up, we'd still be chatting about the same stuff, or making the same false promises, or pretending we're going to be this, that and the other, where it doesn't happen. So it is a case of you have to remove the booze to allow all this stuff to happen. And it is a case of also removing a comfort blanket with the booze, because it is that element of security. We do like to do it at the weekend because it makes us feel good, but it also makes us forget the week. And it also, we think we're rewarding ourselves, and then we go back in the week and we do that cycle after cycle. And all the time you're missing out on all this stuff. The going out to the woods, because all that is spiritual as well. You know, being in connection with nature, the ice baths and all the things that give you the real life buzz, because you haven't got the booze, you're not recovering, you're thriving. So yeah, it's all...
I think that's why we love a sunrise and a sea swim. It's all connected to the same thing, isn't it, in many ways?
Yeah.
And then given that, how has your sort of outlook on life, both of ours have changed and evolved, because, you know, we've spent a lot of time together over the last 5 years, and when we get together, we have these type of conversations, and I can see how your mind is shifting and vice versa. Stepping into the now and going forward, how's that going to shape what you do over the coming years?
What, the spiritual side?
Yeah.
Oh mate, it's changed it all, because I see it as a broader life now. I've got quite a visual person, and I was saying this even to you this morning. I see my life as like a little pie chart of like a cookie cutter of what I need to do, and I'm quite good at doing the things I need. I'm quite driven by it. So coming away from the booze, it was a mess of a pie chart. You know what I mean? It was like a trifle. It was all over the gaff. But it, you know, I had to go and repair me. Let's go and, you know, right the wrongs, and, you know, become a better person, and thrive as a dad, and, you know, level up to my wife and things like that. And I think gradually now I've sort of ticked a lot of them off. I'm like always on a journey with my fitness and my health, and trying to optimize my sleep and those things. But I'm doing all right, actually. And there's like one or two things left that I need to fix. But I think because of that spirituality, I've focused on me as a whole in a much broader sense, and invested in the time in me, and allowed myself to read the books, and allowed myself mind to wander, and allowed myself to go to Scotland to do the mushrooms, and allowed these things, because actually that makes me a better person, which makes everybody around me better and benefit from it. Whereas beforehand, without spirituality, it would have been a case of like focusing on one thing, like money, and let's do that, or focusing on one thing like gym and health, let's do that. Whereas now I'm not going to be happy until I've completed this like whole section of me, which I'm doing all right with, to be honest.
You are, and I've said it to you personally, and Tara and I talk about it. You've done such a brilliant job as a dad. We love seeing what you've done with your lovely family as now a husband, and you're a really good, genuine guy. You know, I've spent a lot of time with you over the last 5 years, and I see that, and I can feel that energy, and I'm thrilled that you've been on this little adventure with me, and we're just warming up and stepping into this new chapter of our lives together, to go out into the world and try and add value. And it's not easy. And again, we face all the challenges, don't we, ourselves, from, you know, time and energy and income and all the things that we need to create to make these happen. But I feel really aligned with you, and vice versa, that we're on the right path to help a lot of people. And maybe again, that vision, that encounter, it's all effectively coming to fruition. Yeah,
and even those things you say about it, it's like when you're doing good, and you are a good, when you can go to bed at night, and you my kids are everything to me, and I'll like make sure that I love them to death every single day. I'm like, so I'm probably extra. I'm probably too lovey-dovey. I'll slip them a $5, or I'll give them an extra chocolate bar, or all those things, because I just love them so much. I just want to, they're my everything.
Yeah.
So like, that is just so important to me. I can't remember why I was going off on that tangent, but going back to the challenges we have. It's like, when you're a good person, and you're a loving dad, and you're doing good in the world, and you're helping people, and you're like I am, replying to people for the last 5 years on Instagram for free, or putting yourself on Instagram, creating content and helping people for free, you can go there and think, well, the challenges we face are the challenges we're meant to face. They're not like you've been pissed up and you've drove home and you've been nicked for it. That's a challenge you face because you caused it. These are the challenges we're facing because the world's saying, yeah, you are doing good. Yeah, you are helping people, but it ain't easy. Life isn't easy. So you are going to have challenges, and you face them differently because you are sober, because you are spiritually connected. You can look at it in a completely different light. And what will be, by the way. We've said to each other, haven't we? What we're doing doesn't work out. We give each other a hug, and we know that we've given it a good go. And then we'll move on to the next thing. So, but without that spirituality, that you're back in that box, and it becomes stressed out. Me and you would be punching the life out of each other, wouldn't we? Because we'd be so stressed in the box and so overstimulated by it all. It would just cause carnage. Where we approach things in a very human and like with love, I suppose. I think it's the best way to be.
I think that love is the final piece, isn't it? That is that energy in form, that soul in form. That's the way I see it. I think that's us giving that glimpse of God, or whatever you want to call it, in that love of these moments, or romantic love, or love of children, or those friendships, or even those little moments when you bump into the barista at the coffee shop and you share that small talk. You feel that energy, and I think that's what me and you have tapped into brilliantly. And we're showing up, we're facing all these obstacles because none of this is easy, what we do. And even though we're doing good in the world, there's all those classic challenges, but it's the challenges that make the journey worthwhile, and they make you the man that you're becoming, and hopefully me the same, that makes us more resilient and stronger. And then there'll be all those lovely wins along the way where we do celebrate the successes of the things that we've done in Dry, for example. And we're about to revamp and relaunch Dry, which has been a wonderful resource that's helped many tens of thousands of people that, again, when our day comes knocking, and it will do, maybe we will meet it with a firm step and a little smile and think, we had a go.
Yeah. Brilliant. What a podcast we had.
Yeah.
I feel like we've done this so organically, and I feel like it's nice to do that, isn't it? And it's nice to have a chat about, we're so aligned with our journeys as well, with all that stuff as well. And my pledge to people is I want to talk about more than sober now, because I'm bored of talking about it a lot of the time, and I want to talk about it more authentically than ever as well. Like, that's going to be my goal, like talking about the mushrooms, talking about recently I've been talking about my bad sleep this week since being back, and I was very much a cheerleader for it, and I don't want to be that sort of toxic positivity around it now. I want it to be real. And so my journey now, I feel like I'm coming to a new chapter, and I'm going to talk about sobriety as always the biggest flag bearer of it, but also how the downsides are and how challenging it is, because it is challenging. Otherwise everyone else would do it because the rewards are so significant. But yeah, all that stuff and the spirituality is going to be a lot more coming out of my mouth over the next few months around it. And just always the gratitude of having this journey, meeting you, being inspired by that initial podcast. And beer and booze is kind of just something I look at now, and even on holiday, just looking at people thinking, why would you do that? Like, rather than grinding my way through it and white knuckling it through the first few holidays, it's like you've got this inner sense of peace, like, thank God I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, we'll save all that for episode 2.
Yes.
Matt, you're a ledge. It's been an absolute pleasure. We did it.
Thank you, mate.
Wasn't that a great conversation? Hopefully you felt like you were there with Matt and I in the room, just being part of a deeper, meaningful conversation. That's the conversation we're starved of, I believe, when we're drinking. There's just no time for it. We just rarely ever get there. Whereas there's two pals just having a conversation and going deep on the most important topic of all, our spirituality. And as always, this episode is brought to you by the coachbusiness.school, where I train the next wave of incredible coaches, as well as those that are already accredited coaches in my Coach MBA, which is marketing and business for accredited coaches. And if you're feeling inspired to take a break from alcohol, do check out an incredible app and community called Dry, DRYY, wherever you get your apps from. Let's do this. Until next time, I shall see you soon.